Ramachandra is an incarnation of Sri Krishna. He appeared in Treta Yuga as the son of Maharaj Dasarat and Queen Kaushalya in the Surya Vamsa, the dynasty of the sun. He had three brothers, Lakshman, Shatrughna, and Bharat. His wife is Srimati Sita Devi, the daughter of Maharaj Janak. Maharaj Dasarat, to uphold a promise given to his younger queen Kaikeyi, banished Lord Ram to the forest on the eve of his coronation. Sita Devi and Lakshman accompanied the Lord in his 14-year exile. Ravan, a 10-headed demon, hearing of Sita Devi's beauty, kidnapped her with the help of Marichi, a magician, who assumed the form of a golden deer to lead Lord Ram away from their ashram. With the help of Hanuman, Sugriva, and their monkey soldiers, Lord Ram and Lakshman defeated Ravan and his powerful allies, rescued Sita Devi, and enthroned Ravan's pious brother Vibhishan on the throne of Lanka. Sri Ramachandra returned to his capital, Ayodhya, and ruled the earth for a long time. His sons Love and Kush were born in the ashram of Valmiki Muni, the author of Ramayana, the epic description of Ramachandra's pastimes. Sri Ramachandra Bhagavan ki jai. Thank you. So, just a short reading from Nectar of Devotion, just to keep our devotional education going. This is a chapter entitled Qualities of Sri Krishna, and this one here is titled Beautiful Bodily Features. Any comparison of the different parts of the Lord's body to different material objects cannot factually be a complete comparison. Ordinary persons who cannot understand how exalted are the bodily features of the Lord are simply given a chance to understand by material comparison. It is said that Krishna's face is as beautiful as the moon. His thighs are as powerful, just like the trunks of elephants. His arms are just like two pillars. His palms are expanded like lotus flowers. His chest is just like a doorway. His hips are dens, and the middle of his body is a terrace. So this is a good point here, that we may give some examples to try to give some understanding, but it's not that you would put all those things together and come up with a composite sketch of Krishna. You know, you got a doorway here, the moon here, big lotus there. There's no real material comparison. And Krishna is known as Navayovana, which means eternally youthful. But another explanation of eternally youthful means that he's effervescent, which means like the first time you see him, or every time you see him, it's almost like the first time you've seen him. It's not that you think, okay, Krishna, I've seen him, I know him, right, next. Krishna's beauty is the source of all beauty. So just as we never get tired of certain beautiful things, particularly the devotees never get tired of the beauty of Krishna, because Krishna's beauty is unfathomable. Every aspect of Krishna is unfathomable. So we'll read from Srimad Bhavagatam, first canto. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhavagatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, entitled Krishna is the source of all incarnations, and it's text 22. Nara Devadvam Apana Nara Devadvam Apana Sura Karya Chikirshaya Sura Karya Chikirshaya Samudra Nigrahadini Samudra Nigrahadini Chakre Viryani Ata Param Chakre Viryanyata Param Naradevadvam Apana Surakarya Chakirshaya Samudra Nigrahadini Chakri Viryanyata Param Naradevadvam Apana Surakarya Chakirshaya Chakri Viryanyata Param Naradevadvam Apana Surakarya Chakirshaya Samudra Nigrahadini Chakri Viryanyata Param. Please chant. Nara, human being, Devatvam, divinity, Apana, having assumed the form of, Sura, the demigods, Karya, activities, Chikirshaya, for the purpose of performing, Samudra, the Indian Ocean, Nigraha Adini, controlling, etc. Chakri, did perform, Viryani, superhuman prowess, Ataparam, thereafter. Translation. In the 18th incarnation, the Lord appeared as King Ram in order to perform some pleasing work for the demigods. He exhibited superhuman powers by controlling the Indian Ocean and then killing the atheist King Ravan, who was on the other side of the sea. Please repeat. In the 18th incarnation, the Lord appeared as King Ram in order to perform some pleasing work for the demigods. He exhibited superhuman powers by controlling the Indian Ocean and then killing the atheist King Ravan, who was on the other side of the sea. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The personality of Godhead, Sri Ram, assumed the form of a human being and appeared on the earth for the purpose of doing some pleasing work for the demigods or the administrative personalities to maintain the order of the universe. Sometimes great demons and atheists like Ravan and Hiranyakashipu and many others become very famous due to advancing material civilization by the help of material science and other activities, with a spirit of challenging the established order of the Lord. For example, the attempt to fly to other planets by material means is a challenge to the established order, The conditions of each and every planet are different, and different classes of human beings are accommodated there for particular purposes mentioned in the codes of the Lord. But puffed up by time's successes, Ravan was one of them, and he wanted to deport ordinary men to the planet of Indra, heaven, by material means without consideration of the necessary qualifications. He wanted a staircase to be built up directly reaching the heavenly planet so that people might not be required to undergo the routine of pious work necessary to enter that planet. He also wanted to perform other acts against the established rule of the Lord. He even challenged the authority of Sri Ram, the personality of Godhead, and kidnapped his wife, Sita. Of course, Lord Ram came to chastise this atheist, answering the prayer and desire of the demigods. He therefore took up the challenge of Ravan, and the complete activity is the subject matter of the Ramayana. Because Lord Ramachandra was the personality of Godhead, he exhibited superhuman activities which no human being, including materially advanced Ravan, could perform. Lord Ramachandra prepared a royal road on the Indian Ocean with stones that floated on the water. Material scientists have done research in the area of weightlessness, but it is not possible to bring in weightlessness anywhere and everywhere. But because weightlessness is the creation of the Lord by which he can make the gigantic planets fly and float in the sky, he made the stones even within this earth to be weightless and prepared a stone bridge on the sea without any supporting pillar. This is the display of the power of God. Om Agyanatimarandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakrunmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Bhakam Karoti Vachulam Pangamlaya Tegram Yakripatamam Vande Shikram Dintaranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. In the 18th incarnation, the Lord appeared as King Ram. In order to perform some pleasing work for the demigods, he exhibited superhuman powers by controlling the Indian Ocean and then killing the atheist King Ravan, who was on the other side of the sea. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that there's always two types of living entities in this world, the divine and demoniac. And even sometimes, say in Kali Yuga, they can be residing within the same body. Sometimes we can do nice things, and then other times we might even surprise ourselves at some of the demoniac things that we do. So the natural order of things is that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Be thou happy by this yajna." So people would be forming yajnas in different ages. There's different yajnas or sacrifices, and according to the age, one is required to perform the sacrifices of that age. In this age, the age of Kali Yuga, then the sacrifice is very simple. Chant Krishna's holy names, and we take that out to the people out there so that they can also join in this Yuga Dharma or religion for the age. And even Prabhupada would say that you can chant any name that you know God of, any name that you know of God, you can chant that. However, because Krishna is his actual name, then, and this is specifically recommended that we chant the Hare Krishna mantra in this age, that's why we do it. It's not that we just went through a mantra book and thought, okay, we fancy this one. We're the Hare Krishna club, and you guys are the Govinda Jaya Jaya club, and you guys are the Sri Ram Jai Ram club. It's not like that. This is authorized. Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam, kalona shchevan shchevagatiran yata. Which means that in the age of Kali, the most effective means and most direct means of self-realization is to chant the holy names of the Lord. Now, it's mentioned 3 times because what was the Yuga Dharma or the religion of the age in previous ages namely Satya, Treta and Dwapar. So in Satya Yuga, the process of self-realization was what? What? Meditation, yeah. And Treta Yuga? Sorry, I heard the voice, but I didn't quite see where it came from. Fire sacrifice, yeah. That was Treta Yuga. And in Dwapar Yuga, yeah, opulent temple worship. Now we see remnants of that still here, somewhat of meditation, like we do japa, that's a type of meditation. And when we have other types of ceremonies, or known as samskars, or important events, then we may do a fire sacrifice, which means we just get some wood and we chant some mantras and we offer things into the fire, which is known as the mouth of Vishnu. And this was what was being practiced at the time of Lord Ram. I'll come back to that in a minute. And in Dwapar Yuga, opulent temple worship. For a new dress every day. They don't wear the same one twice. They get offered new jewelry, all these kind of things. But because we don't have the resources come from by performance of yajna. People think that simply by mining they will discover the resources of the earth, but they're produced by sacrifices. And because sacrifices were going on, then there was so much opulence. So typically, for example, the Brahmins, they would be doing some fire sacrifices back in the Treta Yuga. And it was normal that the Brahmins wouldn't receive any pay because they were just looked after. And the utensils they would use in sacrifice would be gold utensils, and after the sacrifice, they would just distribute them amongst the people. So it was such commonplace. But nowadays, the people are being, they create some economy based on this. So, as we were saying earlier, then there's two types of persons within the universe, the divine and demoniac. So the divine are known as the devas or devatas, and or sura, the godly types, and the other demoniac type are known as asuras. Yep. And they're categorized as divine and demonic because it's in terms of accepting a supreme authority, in other words, accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or his different representations. And those who reject, they're known as asuras. So in Sanskrit, the opposite of a word is often, before it has letter A, like vidya, knowledge, avidya, ignorance. Like that, sat, eternal, asat, temporary. So the asuras, they were against the order of things and they wanted to create their own order. Just like today, we have people who want to create their own order and defy the laws of nature. And Prabhupada explains that the more we try to conquer over material energy, the more we become entangled in her complexities. So, because these people have no reference to Shastra or bona fide revealed literatures, they don't accept a supreme authority, then they want to establish themselves in authority. So, for example, we were talking about weightlessness recently. Now, if someone discovers a law, like the law of gravity, they name it after themselves. They don't think, well, this is God's law of gravity, but they call it Newton's law. Why his law? He didn't create the law. But he wants to take the credit. I discovered it. So this is what happens. They put themselves in place of God. Oh, I discovered this. Well, you only discovered it because you're in such darkness. Any fool can see that this is the mystic potency of the Lord. So the part of the Asuras and Ravan and his cohorts in particularly, because they were sworn enemies of Vishnu, and they understand that Vishnu, he is, so as I was saying, Treta Yuga, the method of self-realization was fire sacrifices. So devotees would offer auspicious items into the fire sacrifice, such as grains, etc. And in this way, they would please Lord Vishnu. Now, it's not that Krishna needs anything from us. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Patram pushpam palam toyam yomi bhakti prayachate tadaham bhakti paratam ajnami prayatatmanha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, fruit, flower, or water, I will accept it. So in the purport, Prabhupada says that Krishna is not in need of anything from us. But if we offer it with the word bhakti is used twice in that verse to emphasize that it's the bhakti, it's the devotion which is pleasing to the Lord. You know, if Krishna owns everything already, then he doesn't need us to offer it back. So this is often likened to the parents. They may be quite wealthy and they give the child some pocket money. And the child can do what it likes with the pocket money. But if it decides to buy the parent a present, then the parent's very pleased with that. Not because the parent needs it and the parent could buy that same thing many times over, but they're pleased to see that nice reciprocal appreciative mood of the child. And because we're eternal parts and parcels of Krishna, and though we're in the material world, we've forgotten Krishna, then Krishna sitting within our heart is immediately pleased when we turn back to him and we want to offer things back to him. This is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Whatever we do, yat karoshi yadashnasi, whatever sacrifices we perform, whatever actions we perform, if we do it as an offering to Krishna, then that frees us from material bondage. Because Krishna is always liberated, he's never overcome, he's ajit, unconquerable. He's never overcome by the illusory energy of Maya. He's never, just as light is never overcome by darkness. Then when we connect with Krishna, then also we regain the original qualities of the soul, which is full of, which is eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge. And when we forget Krishna, then we become absorbed in this temporary existence and we think this to be the reality. And then we suffer the results of our actions performed in ignorance. Just like if someone breaks the law, even if they don't know it, then they have to pay the price. Our knowledge is based on ignorance. So whatever advancement we make in material knowledge is advancement in ignorance. This is explained. That the universe, Prabhupada used to say that the universes are full of so many different subjects, but where is the subject where you can learn about the soul? But we can learn so many different subjects relating to this body and this temporary material world, which is in relation to the knowledge of the soul is ignorance. So any more advancement in that so-called knowledge is advancement in ignorance. Of course, this wouldn't go down well if we gave this as an address to the universities, would it? That all you esteemed professors are simply advanced in ignorance. Of course, the knowledge of the material world becomes valuable when we see it in relation to Krishna. Yeah, otherwise it's zero. If you have 1 0, 2 zeros, 5 zeros, 10 zeros, does 10 zeros make it more valuable than 1 0? It's still zero, isn't it? Nothing and nothing is nothing. 0 plus 0 plus 0 a million times is still 0. But when you put Krishna in front of it, when Krishna is the center of the activities, then everything material takes on so much more value because it does have a purpose. It's not that we are simply to renounce everything and live in the forest. But here we'll see, in a minute, we'll speak about Lord Ram. We'll hear a bit more about Lord Ram today when he was exiled to the forest. So the demons sometimes, because they're in such a temporary, as Prabhupada says, puffed up type of mentality. Puffed up means that they've become proud and they've kind of inflated their ego, inflated their self-importance, inflated their sense of ability to control, inflated their sense of power, to the point where they think that they can handle Krishna. Or they think they can conquer over Krishna. So sometimes Ravan, he would send his cohorts, when the Brahmins performing sacrifices, he'd send some of his demoniac friends who had mystic powers, and they would contaminate the sacrificial arenas so that it couldn't be performed. So whenever we're doing some work on the altar or we're doing a fire sacrifice, then there's always a certain standard of cleanliness. And if someone was to contaminate that, then back in those days, they would take months to prepare for a great yajna. Then the demons would come and destroy it with contaminated substances like stool and urine and things. And they would think, if we stop these yajnas, then we'll basically we'll kill Vishnu, because if their logic was that if Krishna is subsisting on the foodstuffs offered by the Brahmins, then if we stop the Brahmins making sacrifices, making offerings, then we'll starve Vishnu out. So this is what they were thinking, but they didn't understand that Krishna is Atmarama. He's self-satisfied. He's not depending on his own creation for his subsistence. And so another part of that was that because there's the system of doing charitable acts, making sacrifices, following certain Dharma codes of what is elevating actions, what is degrading actions. So we've heard of karma, but there's also different divisions of karma, such as V karma, which means forbidden activity. So karma means activity or action and reaction. And V karma means forbidden activity. Ugra karma means horrible, destructive activities meant for destruction of the world. And akarma is devotional service, where we perform activities and there's no material reaction because it's directly related to the Lord's service. And Ravan, he wanted just to bypass all that so that the living entities didn't have to, particularly his crew, they didn't have to perform pious activities. They would just go to the higher planetary systems and enjoy. So according to Srimad Bhavagatam, there's basically 3 planetary systems. There's the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. And the Earth is considered to be on the middle platform, where we have a human form of life. We perform activities and we can either elevate ourselves or degrade ourselves. We have that choice. And if we perform activities which are V-karma or forbidden, then we are in a situation where we get less freedom and we suffer the reactions. And we perform activities which are recommended in the Vedic literatures, then we elevate ourselves, we free ourselves from karmic reaction by various types of prayaschita or atonements, and one can get elevated. So Ravan wanted to do away with all that type of thing, and he would just go directly. It's just a bit like maybe some respectable citizens are having a party and a couple of hoodlums turn up and they just want to gate crash it. One or two people nodding as if they've been on the other side of the door, the hoodlum side. Or you go to a nightclub, and you don't have a ticket, but you're just going to try to muscle your way in. So, and even to do such a thing, it wouldn't necessarily be that they would be able to do it, because, you have to have the suitable body. Just like if you want to live in the ocean, then you have to have the body of a fish. We can't just go and breathe underwater as a human being. We have to have the suitable body. And also scientifically, it's been discovered that there's living entities being recorded living at 600 degrees C, centigrade Celsius. So this is only what we know. What about beyond what we know? And we're considered to be like a frog in the well in that respect. If one is proud, when they get a little bit of knowledge, then they use that knowledge to try to promote themselves. But real knowledge would mean that the more there's an old hippie saying, the more you know that you don't know. So if knowledge leads to humility, then that's proper knowledge. But if knowledge leads to pride, then either knowledge or our use of it is actually not elevating us. So Ravan was already creating such a disturbance amongst the demigods that sometimes when the demigods' order is disturbed or threatened, they'll take care of things themselves, but if there's a very powerful asura or demon, then they'll go and seek the refuge and the assistance of Lord Vishnu. And sometimes this is like us. We try to do things on our own until we realize ultimately we can't, and then we take shelter of Krishna rather than taking shelter of Krishna first. We wait until we've completely no choice. We've tried to enjoy this world to the max, and then we were totally fried out. Then, okay, well, I've nothing left. Let me turn to Krishna. That can be there. Or sometimes by our own strength of our limited intelligence, we try to work out all our problems ourselves. And then when it comes to the point where we can, then we turn to Krishna. It's not the best approach, but it is quite a typical approach. 4 types of people approach Krishna, and one is the person who is in distress. And Krishna accepts these types. So the demigods, sometimes they're considered to be materialistic devotees because although they may be very pious, then still their tendency is to enjoy, thus they have been elevated to the higher planetary systems. Whereas a devotee, we'll be hearing more about Lord Ram and about his devotees today. So for example, Hanuman, he is considered to be a great devotee of Lord Ram. Now his service was not performed with some any tinge of desire for some return. In the material world, we're accustomed to work, reward. Whatever we do, then we want something back for it. I remember once I was distributing books in Edinburgh up by the castle, and I stopped this guy, who happened to be an American lawyer, and I only spoke to him for a few seconds, and he said, if you want to speak to me, it will cost you such and such amount of dollars because every minute of my time is worth this much. And I was thinking, you're so proud of your time, but you may be able to charge people that amount for it, but if people give you that money back, you can't get the time back. Okay, so say somebody gives you $1 million for your time. Okay, give it back. Do you get the time back? So deluded that people think of themselves to be so important. But they're forgetting the real important thing is that the time we have in this human form of life is meant for Atato Brahma Jigyasa, for inquiring into knowledge of the self, the real self. So the different incarnations of the Lord are scheduled, and the pastimes we're hearing today about Lord Ram, the demon Ravan, etc., and these are scheduled. So people sometimes are fooled by, sometimes you'll get some yogis who perform some austerity and they get some mystic power. and they present themselves as a great yogi or a great incarnation or something like that. So the first thing Prabhupada is educated is, okay, where is the reference to this in Shastra, that you're an incarnation? If there's no reference there, then we can conclude it's bogus. And sometimes these people might take offense, or their followers might take offense, but we have to say what's correct. Otherwise, if we don't say it, who will say it? And Prabhupada's educated us so much. You know, what is a spiritual master? What is an incarnation? One doesn't become God, just like Krishna was a small boy and there was some threat to the inhabitants of Vrindavan by Indra, then Krishna immediately let it go over an hill. He didn't have to perform some austerities to be able to do such a mystic power, mystic feat. So God is always God, and he always has that power. There was the story of the two boys who grew up in the village. One was a boatman, and the other one went to the Himalayas to perform meditation. 40 years later, he came back, and he was quite pleased to show his friend that he'd learned how to walk on water. And his friend says, well, for 20 paisa, I could have rowed you across the river. You wasted 40 years of your life. So whether it happened or not is another thing, but we can get the meaning of it. That we can spend countless lifetimes trying to gain something in this material world, but ultimately it's shrama eva hi kevalam, a useless waste of time. But what isn't a useless waste of time is hearing about the pastimes of the Lord and learning about the process of Bhakti Yoga, which is Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana shradvan bhajateyumam samik yuktatamomataha. Krishna explains the different types of yoga to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, and he concludes that of all yogis, the one who is most intimately united with me is the highest of all. So he's talking about Bhakti Yoga. So the other yogas are there simply to fill in time until they come to the point of being a Bhakti Yogi. It's been explained that, I don't know what they do in schools nowadays, but when we were young, if you misbehaved, sometimes you could be told to stand in the corner, face the corner, and they used to have these punishments where they had a front hat that said done something. Or maybe you'd get lines, or you'd get the strap, as we used to call it. You'd get a leather belt on your hands, which was extremely painful. But if somebody misbehaved, then they'd be, okay, write out some lines. Okay, stand in the corner, keep your mouth shut, put your nose in the corner, put your arms crossed. So this is a bit like some of the yogas. Okay, sit down there, do the lotus position, stare at the tip of your nose, don't move, only breathe once every 2 minutes. So this is simply for people who, well, for those who can't control their senses, which is everybody. It's a mechanical method of learning how to behave and pacify the mind. But the Bhakti Yoga is just directly, it means changing behavior. Instead of doing everything in a mischievous way, we do it in a way which is actually pleasing to Krishna. So naturally, Prataraya Sadhunam Vinashaya Duskritam, when the Lord descends, then he delivers the pious, annihilates the miscreants. So naturally, the devotees, they're always attracted to the devotional service of the Lord, and the non-devotees, they're averse to that. So it came to be that Lord Ram took his birth, although when he takes his birth, Avajananti Mam Mudha, that fools deride me when I descend in my human-like form. They do not know my supreme dominion over all that be. So when people see God in a human-like form, then they think, oh, he's just maybe got some mystic power, or that he's just another upstart, just someone for me to compete against. So sometimes the demons would actually challenge the Lord. So in particular, this demon Ravan, he was such a powerful demon, but he was actually cursed to be that demon. Of course, many of us know the story, the 4 Kumaras. tried to enter into Vaikuntha, the Lord's abode, and they stopped them because the four Kumaras were great sages, but they took the form of small boys, little naked toddlers, and Jai and Vijay, they said, "Oh, you can't enter into here. Come back in a few thousand years when you perform some austerities." So they failed to recognize these great sages. And for this injustice, we curse you to take birth in the material world. So Jai and Vijay went to Lord Vishnu, and he said, "Well, because my devotees have cursed you, then we have to honor that curse." Someone just told me yesterday, I think it was, that if you don't tell a lie for 12 years, then Krishna will make whatever you say come true. So that doesn't mean to say that you just purposefully hold off from telling a lie so you can get him to fulfill some crazy desire. Because Krishna is too smart for that. He can wait to the last moment, and then you have to tell a lie. So he gave them the choice that you can take birth 7 times as my enemies, as my devotees, or 3 times as my enemies. And Jai and Vijay were thinking, well, we want to get back to Vaikuntha as quick as possible. It would be nice to take birth 7 times as devotees and be in Lord's pastimes, but this is our eternal service here. We want to get back to that, so let's take birth 3 times as demons. And then they became enemies of the Lord. So in this particular pastime, it was Ravan and his brother was Kumbhakarna. He was a very gigantic person. He would like to sleep a lot. But when he awoke, basically he was so big he would just fall over on top of the opposing armies and demolish them. So sometimes we hear these stories and we think, oh, mythology, Indian mythology, people might come up with that. But at the same time, there's so many unexplainable things. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they call it man-made thing from outer space is Adam's Bridge, they call it. So Adam's Bridge, now, they don't know how it came about, but the Adam's Bridge they're talking about is from Lanka to Setabandhu.
Last part of India where you can go to Sri Lanka, 16 miles in between. She got the NASA picture. NASA has given us that
NASA.
picture where there's a bridge underneath.
Yep.
And Lord Ram has broken some of this bridge so that the enemy cannot come in. But still the rest of the stone bridge is still underground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was the pastime, if you don't know already, was that when Ravan, it's interesting the word Ravan, because the word ravenous, right? Ravenous means what? Like insatiable appetite, insatiable lust. And Ravan, actually, this was his characteristic, that he had insatiable lust. He would kidnap women, and throughout all his journeys, he'd always be looking for the most beautiful women. And when he heard about Sita, then he thought, I must have this most beautiful woman. But Sita was protected by her chastity. This is the greatest quality. And Prabhupada mentions that the beauty of a woman is in her chastity. So therefore, and this is any husband worth their salt as well would appreciate the chastity of their wife. Or anyone who's looking for a good wife, they look for someone who's chaste. They did a survey once. They asked a lot of guys, they said, no, okay, if you had the choice to choose between like most beautiful sports model girlfriend or someone who would actually be loyal to you and be your lifelong friend, who would you choose? And everybody chose, except for the odd idiot, excuse me, but everybody chose that, because who wants to live, what's that famous song? When you're in love with a beautiful woman, you watch your friends, right? If you ever had a very good girlfriend, beautiful girlfriend, or maybe girls as well, they got a beautiful boyfriend, then they're always watching, are you looking at my boyfriend? Are you looking at my girlfriend? What are you looking at? Outside. This is the thing, isn't it? You're always protective. not even protective of her, protective of your asset. We see it like that. But so the loyalty is actually much more valuable for those with any integrity. So this ravenous fellow, Ravan, he was so much attracted when he heard about Sita, then he made some arrangement and kidnapped her. He threatened Marichi, who was a great mystic sage, to take the form of a deer and distract Sita. So when Sita seen the golden deer, I'm not telling the whole story, there's so much to tell, but just when Ram was banished to the forest by some kind of arrangement, then I guess we could backstep a little bit. So at one point in the kingdom of Ayodhya, then where Ram and his brothers and his father Maharaj Dasarat lived, Maharaj Dasarat was his great king, and someone had made some ploy to banish Ram so that he couldn't be king. But he was so much loved by everybody. Naturally, the Supreme Lord has an internal relationship with the living entity, and when the Lord descends, he also brings his devotees with him. So the Lord and his devotees were there, and the living entities had a natural inclination to love him. So it seemed to be in the minds of everybody that it was a foregone conclusion that Ram would become the king after Maharaj Dasarat's death. But someone used a benediction to get Ram banished to the forest for 14 years. So when he was banished, he didn't fight it. Everyone's telling him, well, you should fight this. You know, Maharaj Dasarat loves you so much that he won't allow it to happen. But Lord Ram, he didn't want his father to be defamed by not keeping a promise, so he accepted the banishment. And then he was leaving on although he was banished for 14 years, they were prepared to go with him, and he says, no, go back. But his brother Lakshman and Sita also came. So while they were living peacefully and happily in the forest, then Sita seen this golden deer. She was attracted by it, and she said, oh, Ram, bring that deer. I want it as a pet. So being the Supreme Lord, he knew it was some trickery, but because he was a little bit henpecked, then he went and got it to satisfy his devotee. But when he went, then Lakshman was left to protect Sita, and through some trickery, then he was also forced to leave the protection of protective post of Sita Devi. And then Ravan took his opportunity to kidnap Sita and took her to Lanka. So Lanka is Sri Lanka as we know it now, which was known as Ceylon for some time. And Lord Ram gave him the opportunity to return Sita, and he didn't. And because of that, he was already doomed. Because of Sita's chastity, then he was already doomed because of kidnapping a chaste lady, chaste wife, chaste devotee. So the story goes, ultimately, that Ravan, he met his match, and Sita was rescued. And in an attempt to go to Lanka, then Lord Ram, he wanted to make a bridge over there to take all his army over there with the Vanaras, Hanuman, etc. Now Hanuman, he was able to fly over there, but the others, to contend with Ravan's army, they built the bridge to Lanka. And they would chant the name of Ram on the stones, and then they would make them float. So some scientific investigation has been made into this, and they discovered that these stones are not from that area. They can't actually fathom how those stones would got there. But as devotees, we accept that the Lord, if he can float planets, he can float a few stones. Therefore, we don't accept it as mythology. And the devotees don't need scientific proof for that, because by practicing devotional service, they actually experience the connection with the Lord, and therefore the Lord nourishes that connection with the Lord nourishes their faith. So interesting that this was also the day, the appearance of Lord Ram was the day when our deities Kodni Taimar Pishashi arrived in Scotland. And we see that as being significant because for a long time we worshipped one Shalagram Shila, which such a nice person, such a nice devotee, and behind your back said, did you see what he did yesterday? What a clown. It's human nature to gossip, right? So Lord Ram, sometimes he would go incognito because if he walks out, everybody would recognise him. He's out as King Ram, and he couldn't hear. So he'd go incognito amongst the public and hear what they were saying. And what they were saying was that you had some doubt about Ram and that maybe people's chastity, etc., wasn't it? Because how can Lord Ram accept his wife after she's been in the home of another man? Of course, Lord Ram is showing when the Lord does something, he always teaches us some lesson. So when he did that, he was showing that Sita was actually not contaminated. She had been contaminated. And of course, we say that when Ravan kidnapped Sita, then it was Maya Sita who kidnapped, because just as much as Lakshmi cannot be cancelled, then cancelled means definition. You get some money, even what can you do? Maybe most of the hang on to this lifetime, but how many forecasting is left all behind? How many millionaires, billionaires spend their life accumulating and then leave it all behind? They can't take it with them. So similarly, because Sita is Lakshmi Devi, then you cannot enjoy Lakshmi so quickly. You need some shadow of it. You can enjoy the new life. So that was one example that he took Sita back because in one sense she had never been enjoyed by Robert Kennedy. Because he rejoices performing the pastime of being the ideal king, that when there was some They say that an ideal leader has to be beyond suspicion. So because of some suspicion, suspiciousness and some gossip going on, then in order to stop that gossip, then they say the Sita and you both have to go to the Nitijashram. And the Lord transforms when you go to and the Lord is separated, then that bondage, which called love samai, is even more intense. So whether even love can't even prevent people falling in love. And then you're separated from your loved person, then that's even more intense, isn't it? And different. Sometimes you can be able to measure it in a way for some time. So when the Lord and the devotees, the Lord and the center are separated, and between them,
how can we follow four relatives' teachings and what which they do like?
follow the Pana's teachings is one of the same. So he's teaching us in the Kali Yuga, Harinam Sankirtan. And so first of all, you should learn and memorize the Shikshastakam. This is Lord Chaitanya's mission. Anyone in ISKCON should learn the Shikshastakam, the 8 prayers given by Lord Chaitanya. And the whole process and the goal is mentioned in those 8 verses. The means how to attain that goal. So certainly we can learn so much from reading Ramayana and Mahabharata, etc. So whatever you learn to make yourself a better character by hearing about these things, you become better already. And sometimes we can see where our shortfalls are. But because of Kali Yuga, Kali Dosha, Nidhi Rajan, it's an ocean of faults. And we shouldn't be so dismayed that we are well below the required standard to follow Lord Ram's perfect example. But we should engage wholeheartedly in assisting Lord Ram as Lord Chaitanya in his mission here in Kali Yuga in Scotland. Yeah, that's the answer you're getting. Well,
so there's a difference between an incarnation and an avatar. Is Lord Ram an incarnation or an avatar of the Lord?
what's the difference?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, I thought you were saying there is a difference.
That's what I heard. I'm just wanting some clarification.
Yeah, well, I think the word incarnation is given to those who don't really know what avatar means. So avatar means one who descends. The Lord already descends from the spiritual world. He doesn't incarnate in the sense that he takes flesh and blood. You know, he doesn't become incarnate like that. But he descends from his own abode to this world. Is that all right? So just ask your question again. There might have been something else in that. What was it?
I just want to know what the difference is between like an incarnation and an avatar, because I've heard people talk about Vishnu Tattva and things like this. So I just wanted to know if Lord Ram is identical with Krishna, is identical with Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the other part of the question. Well, I was just going to answer that part there, yeah. Is that when Krishna comes, he's not known as an incarnation. Sometimes people wrongly say that he's an incarnation, just like it says here, scheduled incarnations in this chapter of Bhagavatam. And so that part of your question, is that Prabhupada says that Krishna is not incarnation, he's directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is tu Bhagavan Swayam. He's the fountainhead of all incarnations. And that's also considered with other forms of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya, he's not an incarnation of the Lord, he's directly the Lord. There was one trick question. It used to be there when you got initiated. There was so many questions they would ask us. Like, let's see if I remember it. I think it was something like, is Lord Chaitanya an incarnation of Krishna?
There's one who embodies in the flesh deity. I think it's Latin, carnate. So avatar doesn't come down in the body, made of flesh. So you could distinguish It's a misuse of the word to say that Krishna, or you could say Ramanujan was an incarnation of Krishna. He's not an avatar, but it doesn't come down to double nature.
But they say that it's just like even this chapter has mentioned Krishna is the source of all incarnations. So we use that word because it's not really identified by avatar. And the word is
Incarnate is Latin. Incarnatio, Old French, and then English is incarnate.
Yeah, and then the Upanishad is mentioned Bhavagatam is pure and Bhavagatam is without veins. So when you see the word flooding, the word is used prophylactic. I don't know how that means without veins, but I'm going to start with it. But it's about you see the Lord in a human form, but you don't, but you wish to understand it. It's not the inside the Lord's body, the veins, bones, organs, things like that. But if we, before the movie Avatar came out, nobody would have heard of the word Avatar, or before computers came out, nobody would have heard of the word Avatar. Well, but still they don't know what Avatar means. They think it's something else. So it basically means one of the signs. But for people's understanding and what incarnation is, there's no way 20 parts of Dharma, so you say religion. So Dharma is so much more than religion. Especially Sanatana Dharma means the eternal function of the soul, the eternal being of that. Because Western philosophy and Western theology doesn't have the same concepts as the Vedic teachings. Is there any difference between Krishna and the Lord Ramachandra? Krishna is in his original form. He's the source of all other emanations. We have Lord Ramachandra, he comes as like the ideal king. Are they both non-different, or is there like is there any way? So in this form here, then Lord Chaitanya showed this to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to show that there's no difference between him and Krishna and Lord Ram. The mood can be different, so the Lord may adopt the mood of showing the example of an ideal king. And even now, everybody in India is hankering for Ramraj. Right? They want the kingdom of Ram back again, even like millennia after, countless thousands of years, and still people have been hearing about this pastime of Lord Ram, and they aspire to, those who are pious aspire to uphold those qualities, and we can see that this is the ideal standard. Yeah, so non-different, but in different mood. Sometimes he'll appear for different purposes. Just like when Krishna was there as Krishna, he displayed a different mood, and when he came as Lord Chaitanya, he displayed a different mood. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Ramachandra Bhagavan ki, Shri Shikuntama Prashash ki, Iskon Govinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Tagore Premanande.
His Grace Prabhupada Prana ki, Jai.